I'm so happy to see you.
I'm so happy to see you too. It's been way too long.
It's been way too long. Do you know that you were one of the very first people I met in Los Angeles before I even moved here?
I remember.
Do you?
Yes, because it was at Kathleen's house for her birthday party, and we sat around the food table
We did.
talking.
We did. And our kids ended up going to dance class at the same place.
Hmm.
Yes, yes. And so Maggie,
Yes.
I spoke to you for like 2 seconds, and I don't. Did we talk on the? Yeah, we talked on the phone.
Yeah.
And I said, so has there been stuff in the pandemic? And you said so much stuff. So you have so tell how did you do so much stuff in the pandemic?
Well, when the pandemic happened, when the shutdown happened, alongside my acting career, I direct a large community choir in Los Angeles called the Golden Bridge Community Choir, and I've been doing that for 17 years now. And so I was in the middle of a session working toward a concert with 100 people.
Oh
In
my
this
God.
choir, and they'd already paid me for the session. So as I saw the writing on the wall, I thought, there's this thing. I think there's this thing, and it's called Zoom. And I called my friend Debbie, and I said, "Can you come over and help me get this on my computer because I don't know what the hell it is, but I think we're going to have to use it." And so we did that.
Are you like me? I had never Zoomed before. I had no idea
Never.
what Zoom. Yeah,
Never. So
never.
my friend Debbie, thank God for her, she was tech savvy enough to come over and help me download it and show me what the heck it was. And then I reached out to everybody and I said, "Look here," and nobody else knew what it was either for the most part. So, we sent the link, we did the thing. I'm fortunate in that a lot of in the years of running the choir, at a certain point I began to upload sound files for my choir onto my
Oh,
website. So whenever we were most of the songs that we were learning, I had recorded files for where I've sung all the parts, and I've put that up on the website so people can practice or listen or whatever they want to do. So I really had this tool in my back pocket that I could use on Zoom, even though it was completely untried and untested. So here I have, all these folks who were in choir would come and meet me on a Sunday, mute their microphones. I would play the track on my side, maybe play a single part, maybe play all the parts together, and we would sing. And we had been practicing. Everybody already knew the music. So what we really were doing was just staying together until that session was over, whatever that was going to look like. And in the meantime, I posted a little snippet. I took my phone, I went, "This is crazy." And I took a little video of the choir singing, all their mouths moving, and you could hear the recording of this song from Haiti that was in 5 parts of harmony that was playing from my computer. So it kind of looked like the choir was singing. And of course, this was a brand new visual for most people. So I threw it up on Facebook and I said, we're hanging in. And all these people said, "Wait, what are you doing? How do I do that? I want to do that. Can I do that?" And I
uh-huh.
thought, well, I'm not ready, to open the choir up. This has felt like this intimate village that had to stay together. So at that moment, I just, I don't know, I woke up the next day and I thought, I'm going to start something for everybody. So I started an event called Together in Song, and I ran it every Saturday for the entire, all of 2020. And I had 4,000 people come from all over the world. And each week I would invite 3 other musicians, song leaders, and singer-songwriters to come join me, and we would lead the world in song. And I had about 85 guests over that year's time, and I had, as I said, 4,000 people. We had people coming from all over the world to sing with us, and the word spread, and it was just amazing. And that exists now as an archive on my website that people can purchase for a
Okay,
lifetime
so
for
tell
25 bucks.
us where to go.
It's at goldenbridgechoir.com, where all of my music life lives, goldenbridgechoir.com.
Which is
And
what your Facebook. I couldn't find you on Facebook. I didn't think
sorry.
to put in Golden. I forgot. I forgot. Okay,
I hide in
I'll
the
tag
Golden Bridge
everything.
Choir.
I know.
I do have a public Instagram too. That is
You have a very public Instagram. I found you
yeah,
there. Yeah,
that exists under
yeah.
Maggie Wheeler underscore official. But anyway, my music life is such a huge important part of my world, and I was very fortunate that in the midst of all of this upheaval, I created something that was just a solid you know, rhythm of life. Everybody knew that on Saturday you could come to get together in song. And after I finished that choir session, I reopened choir and I opened it. So I continued choir on Sundays, and we did, I don't know, three or four virtual concerts with guests and virtual videos. And
Okay, wait. My
yeah,
question
a
is, I
lot.
know a lot of musicians that were using Zoom, but they couldn't sync. So they were like, when I had the immediate family on, they were like, no, we're not going to play because it's out of sync. So how did you manage that?
Well, I mean, the first thing was that in the act of gathering people in song, they
Hmm?
were muted and I was not, or my guests were not muted and the participants were muted. So really,
I see.
there's a joke that arose during this time that said, what do you call 100 people singing on Zoom? And the answer is a duet, because you are alone in
Yes.
your house and you are singing with
Yeah.
whomever you are singing with. But the cool thing is, you get to sing with some wonderful people that you
Yeah.
wouldn't get to sing with otherwise. And then in my context, I'm also playing multiple tracks, so people are have the experience of singing. They're singing in harmony even though I can't hear them. And then when it came to making virtual videos, I would meet up with the choir or the participants in choir on Zoom in smaller sessions. I would talk them through recording their parts on their phone. So, I would say, okay, everybody, the altos would meet me at a certain time, and I say, okay, we can do it line by line if we have to. Here's this part. Okay, now I muted them. They're listening to me through their ear, through their computer. I say, give me a thumbs up when you're ready. They hit record on their phone. I play the track. They sing along, and then they send me all those tracks from their phone, and I mix
Who is
them.
editing this together? Get out of here. How did you learn how to do this?
Well, I think, because I already had that skill because I already record on GarageBand. So
Oh,
I was lucky that I could do it. I
oh,
mean, it was like putting Humpty Dumpty back together again. I could take
oh,
all these people in disparate places and have their voices all arrive at my house and put the
wow.
choir together and then give it back to them and let them hear themselves singing together. It was
Ah,
so magic. And that if also on my website, there's a little page called Watch Videos. And if you go there, you can see the virtual videos that we made. And we have kids in my choir too. So we did a bunch of things with them too.
this is so fantastic. And unlike your 4,000 people, I have tens of people. No, we were the COVID crazies all through the pandemic, and we kept each other company, and we loved each other, and we supported each other, and we met every day. Everyone knew where to come.
What time?
And 5 o'clock, live at 5. We were live at 5 every day, and they're here now.
Hi, everybody.
And the COVID crazies are here. And Facebook's been, I don't know if you've run into this, but when Meta took over and they started changing the algorithms and people couldn't get on the show and they couldn't find it. And we've had some issues, but people stopped getting notifications, but we've persevered through it all. Damn
Really,
it.
there have been so many technical challenges along the way that none of us ever thought we would be dealing with or facing or trying to master. And, here's to all of us who figured it out because
Well, or are
we
figuring
are
it. And
still figuring it out.
so now are you still pandemic? Are you post? Where are you now? And how do you? Because I'm trying to segue into the real world, and
Mm,
I'm really phobic, and
yes.
I'm socially phobic. I have anxiety to go back in the world. How are you doing this, and how much are you doing this?
Ditto to all of that. And what happened was that I came up after session and session of Together in Song and session of choir. I got to the point last May where I could feel it. And I just thought, I
Mm,
have to stop. I have to stop. And those events were a real life raft for a lot of people. And for
mhm.
me too. But I
Yes.
could feel the burn. So
Yeah.
I made a decision that on May 1st, this past May 1st, that I would stop everything for a while. And I did in order to kind of mark that moment. I had
Uh-huh.
I had Together in Song that morning, and then I met in person outdoors with whomever wanted to sign up to be a part of this event. And we did one outdoor sing. And it was choir members and their friends, and it was in Glendale, and we met and we had this outdoor sing. And some amazing things happened, including the fact that there's a woman who found me online during the pandemic, and she flew here from Boston to sing with us in person for afternoon. So that was just crazy and amazing. So we did that, and then I took a break for the summer, and I traveled with my family, and I kind of really shut everything down, and traveled meant, we masked, we got on a plane, we went to Massachusetts where we spend time together in the summer, and we just hunkered down, just the unit. And then somebody reached out to me and said, "Would you do this?" Oh, they reached out before I left. "Would you do this live event?" And I said no. Then they reached out to me while I was gone and they said, "Would you do the last one? It's in August on such and such a date." And I could feel my phobic mind taking over, and I could feel the fear, and I could feel the atrophy and the worry that I just don't even know how to do this anymore, person to person, after years and years and years of doing it, because this choir is 17 years old, but I've been song leading for, 40 years, 30 years. So I said yes. I had no good reason except for fear to say no. So I said yes. And then I had to go through all of these, transformations, like just, I don't know, the squirming and the discomfort of getting ready to do it. And it was beautiful. It was at the Lancashire Arts Center in August. At the end of it, it was the part of the end of a series that had been put together by my friend Rob, and it was 50 some odd people. They were masked, and I was not. And the sound was so beautiful, and to hear people singing with walls and a ceiling, it
Oh,
was magic. And around the same time, I was approached by a retreat center in North Carolina called the Art of Living Retreat Center, and they asked me if I would come in September. And in the spirit of facing all of that which you explained so beautifully, I said yes. And then I went through those, I don't know, paroxysms of terror to get ready to go on a plane, to rent a car with my friend of mine, drive 2 hours from Charlotte to Boone, and meet with these people for the weekend and sing with them, which I just did. And it was beautiful. And it was life saving for some people. So it was definitely worth
and
it.
have you avoided COVID?
I got COVID after I stopped everything in May. My youngest daughter graduated from college, and I got COVID at her LA showcase. And I knew, and so did she, and so did pretty much everybody else who went to that thing. And
Yeah.
I knew it. I felt the COVID clock ticking. I said to somebody there, I said, "We're all walking out of here with COVID tonight." And I was right.
Were you not masked?
Sometimes we were and
Yeah,
sometimes
yeah,
we
yeah,
weren't. And it was
yeah,
very celebratory, and it was a
yeah,
small space with very little ventilation. And it just felt like the writing was on the wall.
yeah.
So have you had it?
I have I have not.
Okay.
I have, but I'm going to San Francisco on Monday. I'm going to start
Doing it.
living large. I'm not getting on a plane. I'm still afraid of the plane,
Yeah.
but I'm going to be with my mother tomorrow after she just gets off a plane. So it's like that germs is my germs is. So how was your you had
How was my
Omicron, I
COVID?
guess.
How was my COVID time?
How was your
My
COVID?
COVID time sucked. I mean, I don't think anyone is going to say it's a party, and of course, it's different for everybody.
Right.
At the time that we got it, my daughter and I got it within days of each other.
Mm.
I was alone at the time. My husband was traveling, and I think that was better because it meant he didn't get it, but it was worse because it meant I was the only one making myself soup. But I will say that, Advil and Sudafed, nighttime and daytime, got me through. It was the worst sore throat I've ever had. And that
You
was
didn't
not,
do the Paxlovid?
no,
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 that was probably better for you that you
not
didn't.
really a doctor-friendly human. So, like, the
Ye-
least that I can do, I will do.
Mhm.
But, it wasn't fun. And I have to say that on the other end of it, I definitely felt like my lung capacity was a little bit, you know, challenged.
Compromise.
But I
Yeah.
think I think I'm getting out. I'm coming out of that now. So yeah,
Did
all
you
in
lose
all,
your sense of taste or smell?
no,
That's wonderful.
I didn't. And I think
Mhm.
that, my eldest daughter and her boyfriend got it last Christmas. We were all going to be together, and that plan got, sent to hell. So and they did lose their sense of taste and smell. So I think the
Mhm.
virus has shifted since, from then to now. And uh,
Although everybody gets it different, I still know people who are losing their senses of taste and smell in the current, who
really,
knows? Yeah. Mhm.
good Lord, it's not
Yeah.
fun out there. I have to say,
Mhm.
it's treacherous, and I really look forward to a time when we don't have to be thinking about it anymore. if that time is ever going to come. And in the meantime, I'm glad that we are where we are a little bit further down the line.
So, so how is that for you, Maggie? How has that translated, other than getting on the plane and going in September, in
Mhm.
your day-to-day life? Are you getting back to living? Are things normalizing at all? Is it still this? What's it like?
I think that, for a person who's got such a public life, I also, by the way, the first time I left the house in the pandemic was to do the Friends reunion. That was my first outing. So I went from absolute shutdown, no talkie, no see, no touchy, no nothing, to people coming to my house and COVID testing me and, getting in a car and being welcomed by people in paper suits and shields and, like the Andromeda strain. I mean, it was just nutty. So, and then by the end of that night, with everybody tested, double tested, triple tested, we were hugging, and that was really like this crazy, beautiful,
Oh,
normal dream in the midst of us washing our groceries, so that was crazy.
right.
But I will say that,
And nobody got sick from that.
no, no,
Oh,
at that time nobody did. But I will say that I am an introvert at heart. I'm an extroverted introvert. So being shut down and being at home and having to do less was not hard for me.
hmm
My husband is an extroverted extrovert, and it was a lot harder for him.
hmm
Um, and I was able to kind of pivot and keep a lot of connection, strong connection through this medium with
Right.
human beings.
Mhm.
That filled me.
Right.
And it was also, it gave way to an incredibly creative time. I wrote so much music for the people during
Oh,
that time. It was just having the container really lit up my creative forces. So what is it like now? I'd say it's still really, um, I don't know. It's a tiny little life right now. I mean,
do you go out to lunch? Do you go to people's houses? Do you socialize?
I go outside. I sit outside at restaurants. I think I've gone inside a
Mhm.
restaurant once or twice.
Me too.
I haven't gone to hang out much at people's houses, nor have
hmm
many people come here, although we've done it a
hmm
handful of times. And I have gone out. I've braved and gone out to see music now, I think on two different occasions or
Outside
three,
or inside?
both. But I'm masked inside even when
hmm
other people aren't.
hmm
And yeah, so I've been in a couple of theaters. I haven't been to a movie.
Me
Um,
either.
yeah.
I miss
Me
movies.
too. I miss movies. I'm ready for a popcorn and a big screen.
We went to the drive-in because I missed movies so badly. And it's out of sync and the thing is terrible. No, it was awful.
Oh my God.
No.
I mean, I remember kind of watching lots of people do that. And I remember seeing, a little article about I don't remember where it was. I almost want to say it was in England, but it was a big outdoor concert event or something like that where they had built all of these tiny platforms, and each platform had a railing around it, and each platform had a table and chairs, and you went with your people, and you had your own little
Oh,
outdoor spot, and it looked fantastic. It
that
looked like
sounds
a way of
wonderful.
gaming this crazy system of all of us being stuck. But I'm also, I'm actually producing a live event this weekend. So I'm doing my first, yeah, my
Telltale.
first indoor music event. Um, it's exciting. So, two singer-songwriter and song leader friends of mine, Shireen Amini, who is half Iranian and half Puerto Rican, and she is coming down from Oregon, and my friend Luke Wallace, who's a climate activist folk singer from Canada, who just moved to Los Angeles, and so we're doing a fundraising concert for Amnesty Iran and for the Fiona Community Fund in Puerto Rico. And so, yeah, we're doing that indoors at Nichols Canyon Music at my friend Peter's house, where we've done a lot of phenomenal concerts, and he has put on a lot of concerts up there. And when Shireen asked me, because she was going on tour kind of down this way, and she said, "Are you up for it?" And I said, "No, no, no, I can't, not yet. I really can't." And then my friend Luke moved here. We had breakfast, and I thought, I don't think I can not do it. We need each other. And
Mm.
and for me, and my choir's like this too, whenever the focus is clear and I know we're working for a greater purpose, I'm in, I'm all in. And so knowing that we could kind of focus on the women in Iran, and knowing that we could maybe raise a little money for Puerto Rico at the same time, it became a yes. The no became a yes like in a morning, and I texted, and then I reached out to my friend Peter and I said, could we, would we, in a box, do a concert up there? And he said yes. And so, yeah, anybody, you can also find out about that at goldenbridgechoir.com on the schedule page.
Okay, so now, okay, so how many people, like, you did Women Who Write. I used to have
Yeah.
50 people jammed into my living room.
Mm.
How many people do you anticipate that you'll have?
It's a bigger space. It's a double
Mhm.
height ceiling. There's a big, wide open glass double doors that open into the space, so there's good ventilation. And I
Mhm.
imagine we might, we've had 100 in there, but I don't think people are jumping out as they were once at
Right,
this moment.
right.
So right now, I think we've got over 30 people who have purchased tickets, and I think that we'll have we might get to 50 by Sunday, or maybe it'll be a little bit more. But there's also a balcony, so people can be spread out.
And how do you feel about walking into that? Like, are you comfortable? Are you a little anxious? Or you're not gonna mask, I
No, but
assume.
I've
No.
asked for I've asked for day of negative COVID tests from everybody. So I'm asking them to take a rapid test,
Mhm.
drugstore rapid test, take a
Mm.
picture of their negative test and show it at the door. The last outdoor event I did was a show me your vax card event. And at this point, I feel like, obviously the debate of vax, no vax can get people, set people's hair on fire.
Yes,
But at this point, I feel like everyone is susceptible, and the real information that is useful is, are you negative today?
I love that.
And so that's how I decided to do it. And my invitation and flyer. Now that you and I have established that we really needed each other's emails all this time, you'll see it. But my invitation and flyer just says, thank you for agreeing to take this extra step to keep the community healthy and safe.
And so when you're in a situation like that, Maggie, because I went to a very, very small birthday party on Saturday. There were maybe 15 people there, and we were in a big space. I didn't mask,
Hmm.
which gave me a little anxiety that I wasn't. I did when I went to the bathroom, but I didn't in the room. But people are hugging, and people are so, I had a lot, I looked calm and composed, but I was anxious. I was anxious. I was able to enjoy myself for part, but I was, I'm just so out of, and my
I
whole
know.
life was throwing events like you. It was
Yeah.
always being,
People.
yeah. So it's crazy to feel this way, but do you have those feelings when
I
you're,
do. I do. I feel like I was, there have been two other occasions. Well, one was the outdoor thing on May 1st, where here I was seeing these people who'd been in my choir for 17 years, people I hadn't seen in 2 years. And, we had asked them at that point to show their Vax cards. And, and it was, and I thought, oh, we'll keep a distance, whatever. In 4.5 seconds,
yeah,
it was a hug
yeah,
fest. And
of
that's what it
course.
turned out to be. And I did do one other at a moment when the COVID numbers were a little further down. My friends Evie Layden and Keith Terry came through town. They had had another event scheduled up at my friend Peter's right when the pandemic hit. So now they were coming back around, and we did do it. It was like this one
Mm.
little window where everybody felt a little safer, and I had people show their Vax cards up there too, and that turned into a big hug fest as well. So and I remember the feeling, and I remember thinking, oh shit. Yeah, and then after that, I was just like, okay, whatever, we're in it, we're all in it. Um, there's an interesting little sort of set of a code that's being used in choir land now with singers to say whether you're a cat, a dog, or a bird. And I think, if you identify as a bird, it's like, no, no hugging. You can't, you can't touch me. I'm not, that's not for me.
Oh.
Or if you're a cat, it's like I might be in for it, but it's just depending on my mood and how I'm feeling, and maybe it's a no touch moment, or maybe, I
Ouch.
might touch you. And then of course the dog, is hug me. I want a hug. I don't give it. I just touch me. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
I don't
adorable.
have tags for people up at this thing on Sunday, but
That's adorable. I actually love that. And how about with the holidays coming up, with Thanksgiving coming up? Was your last Thanksgiving a normal Thanksgiving?
it was a tiny Thanksgiving. It was myself, my husband, the daughter who's in Los Angeles, and her boyfriend. It was just us chickens.
Mhm.
And this year will be the same.
Mhm.
My other daughter's on the East Coast, and we'll spend Thanksgiving with her boyfriend and his family, I imagine. And we're all going to be together for Christmas. That's the plan.
Okay, so tell me about your kids, because I know your daughters from dance club when they used to
Yeah,
go
well,
to
you'll have to tell
Revolution
me about
Dance
your.
Studio.
You'll have to tell me about yours too. I have two daughters. For anybody who doesn't know my children, one is 27 and the other one is 22. My 27-year-old is a social worker, therapist in New York City, and
Fantastic.
she's doing wonderfully well. And she finished graduate school during the pandemic, and she's just out
Does
there.
she live in Brooklyn? My daughter lived in Brooklyn. Where does she live?
She lives in Manhattan. She lives down
Oh,
on the Lower East Side, but she works in
okay.
Brooklyn. She works in
Yeah.
Brooklyn.
There's always
She would
Brooklyn.
love to live in Brooklyn, but
There's always Brooklyn involved these days.
yes,
And the youngest, the younger.
my youngest is 22. She graduated from college in May and gave me COVID as a gift. And no, she didn't give it to me. We got it together. And she is an actress, and she graduated from. She was a film, a film major, a screen acting major, at Chapman, and so she spent 4 years acting and making movies and editing and directing and writing and sort of getting a very sort of well-rounded understanding of her craft, and now she's out in the real world.
And okay, now coming out in the real world, COVID-ish time, how challenging is that for an actress, for a young actress?
The young people are
The
living.
young people.
The young people are living. They are not living.
I know my kids are living too.
We're over here like, oh God, I can't go to the grocery store. I forgot my mask. Oh, forget it. I'll do it tomorrow. And they're like, what are you doing? I'm going out here. I'm going out here. I'm going out here. We went here. We went there. Tomorrow we're
Yep,
going here. I've got three places. Yeah, they're just living,
my
and,
kids
and
too.
I'm glad they are.
Well, how does that, okay, so that's my next question. So how do you feel when my kids came over last night? My kids are living life big and large. How do you feel when your kids come over? Well, your daughter already gave you COVID, so
Yeah.
well, you got it
I don't
together.
know. Sometimes I think when it comes to my children, when the pandemic began, my youngest was in Italy on her semester abroad, which got terribly cut short. And
Oh, she was able to get back because Italy got hit so hard.
yes, and she did not want to leave. And of course, we didn't really know what this was. And so
Right.
while other schools were shutting down and parents were yanking their children and getting them home, we were over here going, yeah, you can stay. I mean, you want to stay, you can stay. I guess you can stay. I mean, what do you want? What's the difference? You can stay. Anyway, we let her stay a little longer. And then the day that my friend Debbie came over to help me get Zoom on my computer, that was March 13. We were sitting
That
at
was
the
the day.
table, and my sister called me from New York, and she said, "Do you have the news on?" And I said, "No." And she said, "Well, you better call your daughter and tell her to get on a plane because I don't think she's going to be able to get home after tomorrow." And I was like, "What? What? Huh? What?" So immediately, we get on the news, we figure out what's going on. I called her in Italy, and she had just moved herself into an apartment. So she'd been living on someone's couch because her school had shut down. And she had just moved into an apartment and just unpacked and just had a day or two.
Oh.
And I said, I hate to tell you this, but you're gonna have to come home. And then we scrambled
Did
to
she
find.
keep the apartment in Italy or
No,
did
no,
she?
she had to pack everything up and go. And so yeah, it was crazy. It was all crazy. We had to. We were going to get her two plane tickets because London was still open, but it looked like she could get stuck and not be able to get back to the U.S. But anyway, she did get back. Why are we talking about this? I know. So Daniel and I went to the airport to pick her up, and the whole way we were driving, and this is, of course, this is when it was
Lockdown.
the worst.
Yeah.
And we're looking at each other in the car saying, are we really not going to hug her when she gets out of there? I mean, what are we doing? Are we? Or no, yes, hug, no, yes, yes, hug, no hug. What are we going to do? And we arrived there, and there was another mother there whose the kid was coming from Spain, who also knew my daughter Gemma. So they traveled together from Germany to the U.S. And they got off. We were expecting all kinds of madness at the airport, but of course, in those days, the airports were like no
Empty.
man's land.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
There was no customs. Nobody was
What?
asking any questions. Nobody asked
No
where they had been.
customs?
No. They walked off that plane and they walked straight to us. And we were expecting it to take hours. She was in Italy, for God's sake. No, no, she walked right out of there. So, and we hugged her and we just,
Yeah.
yeah, that's what we did. So I don't know. They show up at the door and I go, "Ah, da, 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 da."
I had a plastic bag from the top of my head to the tip of my toes so that I would go to Harry's backyard and we would have a meal, but I would put the plastic bag on so that I could hug him really tight and hold him
That
really
is
tight. Because
amazing. I saw somebody at the time in the, height of the pandemic who hung a clothesline in their backyard with a plastic
yes,
sheet, and the grandmother would come and hold
yes,
the
that's where
grandchildren.
we got the idea.
So good. So good.
That's how we did it. Oh, yeah,
And so
yeah,
where
yeah,
are
yeah.
your kids? The
So,
COVID
so
crazies
they're
already
now
know.
both here, but Samantha was in New York at NYU and graduated from Tisch, and then right before the pandemic, so she had an actual graduation at Radio City Music
Ah,
Hall, and
wow.
she did like the whole thing because if she would have graduated with her class at 4 years, they got nothing. They got nothing. They got nothing. Nothing. No.
Yeah, I mean, Juno graduated from at NYU from graduate school during the pandemic, so we were
And yeah,
online
and
for that.
nothing. So she got to have a real graduation, but then she went into, she got a waitress job. What do you do when you're going to be an actress? And then boom, shut down. Now she works at a law firm and she just applied to UCLA Law School.
Oh
And
my
so,
gosh.
but she still wants to be an actress. She did her first shoot for Vogue. So it's wonderful.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's
And
amazing.
Harry works for Little Dot Studios and he's in LA. He works from home and he's watching the Yankees right now. And I hope they're winning. And but my kids are doing great.
That's so
It's
good. I'm so
yeah,
glad. I mean, listen, this
yeah.
is one resilient generation who's had to go through
Could
this
you
crazy.
imagine this is a chunk of their life? This is a little chunk of a tiny chunk of our life.
Yeah,
This is a big chunk of their life that they're
big
living
chunk.
through this,
It's
which,
really big.
but they're living. They're not doing, they're
No,
not,
I mean, and I'm so, yeah, for everything that happens that feels full of life, I'm so glad for them all, that
yeah.
they don't have to, I don't know, feel the way we do.
I know,
Although,
but
I think many of us at our stage of life and the game are like, oh, I could, life is a little less intense and a little less nonstop.
yes, I think there was a certain relief to COVID, to being home. I mean, we're going to be locked up for 2 weeks. I can't leave my house. Are you kidding me?
Ah,
But yeah. Before we move on from the music, you have a surprise for us that I'm
oh,
so excited about, that you surprised me with 2 seconds before we went on the air. So Maggie is actually going to sing for us and show us what this project that you've put together in COVID is about and how
yeah.
it works. And you're going to give us a little taste. And
I
tell us
am
about
gonna
it.
do that. So, yeah, I thought about that right when Vicky and I got on before we all joined you, and I'm right now I'm putting together a little compilation of songs that I'm going to release on my website. I've got some singles up there and some other things that are that I did as full CDs, but there's so much music that's happened in this last while that I haven't really released in any compilation format. So I'm putting together a group of songs right now that I'm going to put up there, and so I was sort of in that mindset, and so there's a song that, let's see, it says 2020 and I can't remember, it was pretty early on in the pandemic. It was once I had started Together in Song, and I wrote this song called Maybe I'll Sing. And the reason for it, the reason the song sort of came into being was that we were all so afraid, and we were all so full of grief, and we were all so sad, and my experience was that it was just trapped in my body,
Mhm.
and I didn't feel well, and I didn't feel the way that I wanted to feel. I didn't feel alive, and I didn't feel my joy, and I didn't. And so this is a song. And so then we would get together and we would sing online for a period of time. And lo and behold, even with muted microphones and even with all the technological kind of impediments, at the end of an hour or an hour and a half, we felt better.
Oh,
And my friend Lisa Littlebird just used to sort of shout out in the middle of everything, I feel better. And it was just this acknowledgement of what singing can do, even in
mm,
these circumstances. So this is a song called Maybe I'll Sing. And I guess if I thought people would see the lyrics, I'd put them in the chat, but I don't think that's the case. So I'm going to just sing it for you.
yay.
And this is, so you can hear, this is me and the choir of me's, and I'll sing along with it. Maybe I'm sad, maybe I'm mad, maybe that's why my body feels bad. Maybe I'm sad, maybe I'm hurt, maybe my brain's on high alert. Maybe I'll sing, maybe I'll shout, maybe I'll let my feelings out. Maybe I'll stand in the rain, maybe I'll let go of my pain. Maybe I'll trust, maybe I'll pray, maybe that's how I'll find the way. Maybe I'll sing, maybe I'll sing, maybe I'll sing. Maybe I feel dark despair, maybe that's why I can't get air. Maybe I'm laden down with grief, maybe that's why I need relief. Maybe I'll cry, maybe I'll sing, maybe I'll let my true voice ring. Maybe I'll sing, maybe I'll see, maybe I'll let myself be free. Maybe I'll dance, maybe I'll run, maybe I'll stand out in the sun. Maybe I'll sing, maybe I'll sing, maybe I'll sing. Maybe I'm sad, maybe I'm mad, maybe that's why my body feels bad. Maybe my heart needs to grieve, maybe that's why it's hard to breathe. Maybe I'll sing, maybe I'll shout, maybe I'll let my feelings out. Maybe I'll sing, maybe I'll see, maybe I'll let myself be free. Maybe I'll trust, maybe I'll pray, maybe that's how I'll find the way. Maybe I'll sing, maybe I'll sing, maybe I'll sing. Maybe I'll sing, maybe I'll sing, maybe I'll sing. Maybe I'll sing, maybe I'll sing, maybe I'll sing.
Oh my Maggie, I have goosebumps. First of all, I love this on every level. This pandemic, no pandemic, a song. This is like a song that needs to be on the radio. I love this.
Thank you. Well, these songs have acted sort of as medicine for everybody for all the different real reasons and the feelings and the circumstances that we find ourselves in that were so new to everybody. But as a songwriter or song leader, somebody who had that medium to work with for the first time, I thought, oh, it doesn't matter who we are or where we are all experiencing the same thing at the same time. And that is a very strange and rare human
It's the first time in our lifetime,
first time.
probably the only time in our lifetime that will ever be true, right?
Yeah, yeah.
The
So I
whole
wrote for that.
world is experiencing the same thing. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
It's a game changer, I think, for the way that we understand the connectedness of the human species. I hope.
Yes, and isn't it crazy though that in the middle of all of this we have these incredibly corrupt politics and all this going back in time, and there are still crazy serial killers, and it's unfathomable to me that this stuff
Yeah.
can go on when we're all in this situation together.
And I will say also, I think that the kind of cumulative effect on our nervous system from all of this that we have been through and all of this that we are going through, for me, at this exact second makes it a lot harder for me to stay focused on all the negativity. Some of it I have to stay focused on. Roe v. Wade, I have
We
to
have to vote. We have to
Iran,
vote.
I have to stay focused on. We have to vote. But
Yes.
where there was a moment in time where even during the pandemic too,
Mhm.
or the height of the pandemic when I was just inundating myself with news, bad
Mhm.
news, bad news,
Right.
I can't really do that much of it now. And I'm trying to
Mhm.
just leave enough space to take a walk and
Taking a
still do
walk is.
the work.
Okay, so how did your eating change during the pandemic? Did your exercise yeah, I
By
mean
what do you mean?
the COVID-15. Yes. Yes, I know.
Yes, in
Yeah.
fact, it did.
Yeah.
I'm working hard to turn that one back, but
You know what the killer is? It takes 5 minutes to gain it, and it literally takes 15 years to lose the damn stuff.
unless you're a man, unless you're a man.
Yeah. Well, even men of a certain age struggle with taking it off, I think.
It's true.
Yeah, I think at a certain point it gets difficult. So, okay, so this is what you're doing now, but let's talk about what you did then, because there are people that are on here today that weren't with us for the first time we sat and chatted. And the fact that you have this fabulous voice, and you're so, did you always sing? I know the answer. I know the answers to these questions, but I'm asking them anyway.
Okay.
Did you always sing, and when did you start songwriting?
I was very fortunate. I went to a summer camp that was run by Pete Seeger's brother, John, and his wife, Ellie. So I grew up surrounded by folk musicians, guitars, and banjos, and dulcimers, and music. And I was a
Was your
New York,
home musical?
no, there was bossa nova on the record player and, that kind of thing. So there was music playing,
Mhm.
but no. And so I actually, I was forced to take piano lessons as a child, which I was not that excited about. I mean, I liked it until I didn't like it. I liked it until I heard the Beatles were going to be on television, at which point I hid under my parents' bed and I hurt the piano teacher's feelings because they couldn't find me. Um, but it was really those formative years at Camp Killalete in Vermont, which still exists, that where I really was surrounded by musicians and we would sing around the campfire and learn the chorus and harmonize, and that was just home for me. And so when I left there and I was pursuing my young interest in acting, and I went to I went to an arts camp after that for a couple of summers, and um, but I was still just always yearning for that feeling of home that came from sitting with people and singing. And that, and yes, I sang with a band or two along the way, but really my heart and soul is with community singing. And so that evolved. I became a student of Izai Barnwell, who sang bass for Sweet Honey in the Rock for 30 some odd years. And she was really my teacher, my mentor, the person who showed me what was possible to walk into a room full of 60 people, 30, 40, 50 people, and get everybody singing in 5-part harmony without giving them time to ask if they can do it or they can't do it. And so that's become really my soul work. That I've been just involved and invested in all alongside my acting career.
Okay, so was the dream when you started to do musical theater,
Mm.
was that the dream?
I think it was when I was little, but I do not have the voice for musical theater, nor did I ever. And of course, as a young actor in New York, I took voice lessons and all the weird voice teachers. I had one crazy voice teacher who had all this metal crap that she stuck in my mouth, and I had one that smelled like bananas and tea. I remember them all, but I had one who told me that I wasn't very grounded, and he said, you're back on your heels, and he would shove me to show me that I wasn't really standing on my toes. Anyway, all the crazy voice teachers, but. And I was in a musical theater company for kids when I was in high school called the Merry Mini Players. But that's not the voice I have, and it was really about finding the music of my soul that that I can't explain that. It's just something that happened in my life, and
But I can hear it. You sing with great passion, with incredible I mean, you have a very strong voice, and very melodic. It's beautiful.
thank
I
you.
know what you're saying. The people that have like those really trained Broadway voices, all
Yeah,
that crap is a whole different thing. But you really, the fact that you have the fortitude, the courage, and the self-confidence to find your voice and to sing it out is very inspiring. And I
thank
know
you.
that it inspires many.
Thank you. Well, that's what I try to do, is to set up an environment where everybody can do that and where we can lay down all the cultural ideas of who sings and who doesn't sing and what it is to be a
How do
good
you do that,
singer.
Maggie? How do you take somebody who was told to their life, you're not very good, you can't sing? How do you take somebody like that and help them to sing?
Carefully, gently, and with patience. I never, in my choir, in all of my workshops, there's never a moment where I point to somebody and say, let me hear what you're doing. So no one's ever asked to sing alone. And if,
Mhm.
and there are times where people are very shut down by all of that messaging that they got in grade school or from their families or their brother or whoever said, shut up, you can't sing, and so
Mhm.
that's so prevalent. So I think it happens over time, safety in numbers, the way I teach. There's always something for people to do, even the scared people. And then even if they're quiet and they're in the back of a group of people, when that music starts working on them, little by little they become courageous, and little by little they find their voice, and little by little they realize that they're part of it, and that it won't be the whole without them. And something happens in the consciousness that kind of relieves some of that stuff. But sometimes it can take time.
Julie Warner is on and says, Camp Killer. Yes, and Gigi's on too, and
Hi, you
so
people.
your girls are here.
Girls are in the house.
Your girls are in the house. Okay, so for Maggie, I know that you went to Dalton, and I know that you did not graduate from Dalton. You didn't like Dalton. You ended up leaving. Where did you become? How did you go from these summer camps to becoming a professional actress? How did that happen?
I think by the time that I left Dalton, which was at the in ninth grade, end of ninth grade, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, I think either I left in ninth grade or I left in 10th. I can't remember. But I was already very passionate about acting and wanting to become an actress. So at that point, I was fortunate enough to land in the classroom of Alfred Urey, who wrote Driving Miss Daisy. He was my high school theater director when I switched schools, and he was very supportive of me. And then I started taking class at Neighborhood Playhouse, and then I had another teacher who was a student of Win Handman's, and so I would just kind of move around and
So
study.
your parents must have been supporting you through
They were
this.
not excited about it. They were not excited about it. But really, the first thing that happened was I got to that high school. I met these kids who were in the Merry Mini Players. I joined that company. And then I went out. I would go after school, rehearse theater, and perform for kids on the weekend. We did children's theater for children. And it was, children doing children's theater for children.
Right,
And
right.
so that was great. I really got to dig kind of my teeth into it. And then I was sort of desperate to get started professionally. And I was searching for how you do that. I used to buy backstage and cut school and go stand in a line with a bunch of 20 somethings and audition for stuff that I had no business auditioning for whatsoever. I mean, I did all kinds of crazy things to make the dream come true. And then I finally landed I landed in the office of a manager by the name of Muriel Carl at Muriel Carl Talent Management in New York City. And all these kids were there with their mothers, and they were in like matching gingham outfits, and
Oh
sing for Muriel, dance for Muriel, do your monologue for Muriel. And I was alone because my mother was like, over my dead fucking body, I am not taking you anywhere. He says, you want to do it, you figure it out. So anyway, they took me on. And just this last year, sometime, I went to an acupuncturist in my neighborhood, and she danced with the Joffrey when she was young. And we were in the middle of talking about our childhoods and all the rest, and something I mentioned Muriel Carl, and she said, I was with Muriel Carl. And and so I somewhere
the answer to that.
in my archives I had found some, some paper that has a two-page spread of all of us when we were little, and Cynthia Nixon and whoever, we were all there with Muriel Carl.
Wow.
So anyway, I was after it when I was in high school. I got nothing, no traction, no job, no nothing, but
Wait,
I tried.
Maggie, did you believe that you were going to did you have it? Did you have the conviction that you could do this, that you were going to do it?
I think I'm a naturally optimistic to the point of being a little, daft at times, and that worked in my favor when I was
Mhm,
that age.
mhm.
I thought, yeah. I mean, my goals were not that lofty at the time. I thought if I could only get a Burger King commercial, I will make it. And if I could only get a soap opera or something, whatever it was, I had these small
Seemingly
seemed
attainable
attainable,
goals.
except that at the time everyone was like, you're very ethnic. What are you? Are you Puerto Rican? Are you Italian? Are you Jewish? What are you? What are you? So, it didn't look like it was going to work. And then the great thing was that
Did they try to get you to change? Did they try to get you to lighten your hair, to change your name, do all that stuff?
yes, the name change question came up, which I did not do. And then I started getting extra work. Like that's the way that I could work. And so I went off one morning at 4 a.m., freezing cold, on a bus to go be extras in a some airline commercial or something. Jane Krakowski was on that bus. We were just babies. And there was this woman sitting next to me. And I wish I could hold something up to you right now to show you the alien color of her eyes. But she had brown hair, she looked like me, and she had turquoise eyes. And I'm looking at her and I'm like, what is that? I It's not real. It can't be real. I need that. That's what I need. If I have that, it's all solved. I'm going to be famous. So I asked her, I said, what's up with that? And she said, oh, they're contacts. But this was long before
Oh, yeah, yeah.
the advent of a soft contact lens. So they
Right.
were hard glass, hand painted on the inside, contact lenses, and they kind of sat outside of her eye. It looked like she had a spoon in her eye, and her eyes were bloodshot all around them. I didn't care. Whatever it was, I was like, that. So she gave me the name of the guy, and she said, you're really not gonna, it's not comfortable. And I was like, la, 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 la. So I went to this German, optician in New York, and he said, "Yeah, you are not going to like this. This is very, very light sensitive. Make you extremely light sensitive. It's only your vanity. You don't need it. It's going to be very, very uncomfortable." I'm like, "Just make them." And I begged my parents to pay for them, and they were not cheap. And I said, "Don't, this is my career. My career. It's just this little blue circle." And so I had them, I made, and then I put them on, and of course I made it for about a day and a half before I was in a dark room, shielding myself from the television. I had turned the bright knob all the way down. Anyway, I still have them.
Oh,
They're
that's hysterical.
they're in a box. But yeah, I guess I believed, Vicki.
Okay, so how did that dream start? So was there a Burger King commercial? What was the
Nope.
first thing?
First thing was a voiceover for where I was put in a crowd with a bunch of young people, and it was for the Rubinoos. It was a band in the '70s, and I was in the crowd going, "Ooh, the Rubinoos, ooh, the Rubinoos," and then they said, "Who's the kid with the low voice?" And I was like, "Oh shit, I just got fired." And so they pulled me out, gave me the spot, and I began to work for CBS Records and through Clack Studios in New York, and they just brought me back and back. So my work started in voiceover, and then I started, doing extra work in movies and television shows as I could get it. And then I would say my break into showbiz came when I was about 25, 4. I can't remember how old I was. My sister's ex-boyfriend's girlfriend at the time was working for Lorne Michaels, and she said, "We're working on this new show, primetime sketch comedy. For Lorne Michaels, would you like to audition?" And I said, "Yes, I would like to audition." And she said, "Okay, well, you have to write 6 minutes of original stand-up." And I went and cried for about 5 days. I shut myself in the room and cried. I'm like, here, it's the opportunity of a lifetime, and I'm not going to be able to make it happen. But I
Had
wrote,
you done improv? Had you done stand-up? You hadn't done
I
any of
mean,
that?
only in that I was a goofball and I was a mimic, and I had been making people laugh my whole life, and
Right.
that made me happy. But in any kind of, I'd taken acting classes up the wazoo, but I had not focused on comedy improv. So I wrote 6 minutes of character-driven stand-up comedy. I went in, I auditioned for Lorne and
What
Brian
you
Murray, and
this was post Saturday Night Live. This is Saturday Night Live
yes,
was
it was.
already,
He
yeah,
left SNL for a year, and Gene Dumanian took over, and he left,
right.
and he did this show.
Mhm.
And so the cast was a bunch of people from Second City, Dave Thomas and Valerie Bromfield and Buck Henry, and it was a
Oh,
great
wow.
cast, wonderful cast, and I got to work with the best people in the best. I mean, from Steve Martin to Penny Marshall to Kevin Kline and
I
Raul.
saw your picture with Lorraine Newman,
Oh, you did. It's up here.
Lorraine.
I just
Yeah.
found it in my garage. Right.
Yeah.
Lorraine Newman, Gilda, everybody came on that show.
Wow.
All of Lauren's friends came on that show. And I was young, and he was miserable. He hated it. It was tanking. And
Wait a minute. Okay, wait, back up a minute. You wrote 6 minutes of stand-up,
oh,
having
I
never
did.
done stand-up. How do you get this part? How does this happen?
I guess I was so out there. I did the 6 minutes. There were characters in the
Do you
6 minutes.
remember what your first character was?
Well, one was I was raised by a Cuban nanny.
Okay.
And there was a moment in time when we were very young, very, very young. I think I was 7. And I came down for breakfast, and she was in the kitchen. And I lived in a house in New York. So my mother was up, and the kitchen was down. And I was, marching off to get ready for school. And she was standing. She was a big woman. And she really was my mother. I was born into her hands, and I accepted her as my mother. And she was standing in the kitchen. She said, you are disgusting. You are disgusting. I'm like, what the hell did I do? And she's like, you teach it. So she had walked in on my young brother fondling himself, and she asked him. He was 4. It was having
Yeah.
fun. So she asked him who taught him how to do that, and he had a minimal vocabulary. He said, "I taught him." So when I walked into the kitchen, she had it in for me, and she's like, "You teach your brother play with this $1 billion? You are going to go blind. You are going to go crazy. You are disgusting." And she was screaming at me. So anyway, I used that story. And
That's a
I
great
I
one.
did a bunch of things, based on people that I knew, and then I made some crazy hybrid, weird little interview show between Julia Child and Jacques Cousteau talking about sea bass. And so that was, I don't know where that came out of my head, but anyway, then I had to improv with Dave Thomas, with Brian Doyle Murray, with, they just threw people up onto the stage to improv with me,
Did
and
you
I
know the rules of the basic rules of improv? No,
knew
you just
nothing. But you know what I did know? I knew New Yorkers.
you knew, and
So
you knew funny.
I knew
You knew
funny and I
funny.
knew New Yorkers. So anyway, I was very fortunate and I got on that show. And then after that, I moved out here when it was canceled. I moved out here and I met Henry Jaglom on the last day of the show, the night it was canceled. Our mutual friend, who's Jonathan Coffer, who passed away, invited me to dinner, took me to a restaurant. Henry was there. He introduced me to Henry. At that point, I knew the show was being canceled and I'd already made plans to move to Los Angeles. And Henry said, come see me when you're there. I'm editing a movie, come watch. So I went and watched him edit. And then I got a job in cartoons. And so I went back to New York to do that. And Henry and I had become friends. And he said, I want to make a movie with you when I get back to the city. Let's make a movie. And so we made New Year's Day. And then that brought me back out here. So
Okay, one thing I did not ask you last time that I have to ask. I know you
hmm.
made it with your ex-boyfriend,
Oh, I did.
David Duchovny. Now, but what I didn't ask you last time is when were you boyfriend and girlfriend? How did that happen? And why did you guys break up?
I just talked to him today, actually. We are very good
Um,
friends. Here is how it happened. I had a boyfriend when I was 21,
uh-huh.
broke up. We had one of my best friends from high school, my friend Eric, was good friends with the guy I broke up with, and I was a little bereft, and he felt bad for me, and so he introduced me to his friend David. They were at Princeton. They were all at Princeton, and so I went on a date just with David. He took me to see Mephisto, I think it was. Crazy. Anyway, yeah, that's how Eric introduced us. My friend Eric introduced us, and we dated for a moment in time, and then I moved out here. We'd sort of broken up before I moved out here, or we were. It was sort of, yeah. It was on the. It was we were skidding into breakup when I moved. Um, but we've been remained very good friends. Then I came back to New York to make that movie, and Henry gave me a kind of short list of people to play my boyfriend, and I was not, there were no bells ringing with any of the suggestions he was making. And David, at that point, who was at Yale grad school, was acting, starting to act, taking class in New York and whatever. And Henry said, well, what about David? Because we were going to
How did he
explore
know
that.
about David?
Well, he knew me. Henry knew me really
I
well.
see.
He knew me through this period of time that David and I were breaking up, and he liked
I
that
see.
story. He liked the idea of a young person who ends a relationship and leaves a city, to kind of start over at the end of something. And so it was Henry and his little, wily ways who said, well, what about David? I said, oh, okay, well, that's an idea. So I called David and I said, look, I have a proposition for you. You know, how would you like to make this movie with me? But you need to like sign on the dotted line that you're on Team Maggie, because whatever sort of games Henry decides to play, you
And
got to
we
be
know Henry can
on
play
my
some
side,
games.
on my side, which he kind of was and kind of wasn't. But anyway, obviously that movie put David on the map. By the
Yes,
time
yes.
it screened in Los Angeles, the agents were talking about this young Richard Gere, and they were swarming in the lobby of the Directors Guild to meet him. So, yeah,
Wow. Okay, so you do Henry's film. You and what happens after that?
Henry's film does so well for me, and I was, it represented the U.S. in the Venice Film Festival. We went to Italy. I was on Johnny Carson. I won an
Oh my
award,
God.
like
Now,
all
are your
kinds of fun
parents
stuff.
on board now? Come
Yeah,
on, Johnny Carson, come on.
yeah. I think my mother said it looked like there was a shadow on your teeth.
Yeah, today. Oh
You,
my God,
you never forget the shit your mother says to you, no matter what it is. It's like could be out there, but it sticks. Um,
yes.
so yeah, no, it was exciting. It was a really exciting time, very, very exciting time. And then, I kind of marched along, and things didn't happen after that. I had access to a lot of work, but I was also up against some very stiff competition at the time. And
Were you hearing anything about you too Jewish to New York to this to that? Were you getting any of that or no?
no, Not at that point. I think I was actually at that point, I was almost exclusively reading for Italian girls. And so there was none of that going on. But there was Annabella Sciorra and there was Marissa Tomei. So,
Yeah,
there were, and a lot of us, a lot of other young women out there. There were a lot of us.
right.
So, yeah, so the kind of dreams and things didn't exactly unfold in that Henry moment, post New Year's Day moment for me. But then I started getting some really good TV, and I got a chance to do LA Law, and then one thing led to another. Just I had some wonderful opportunities, and then I booked Seinfeld after a 6 month dry spell. I booked Seinfeld, and that kind of started the ball rolling a little faster, and it reminded me how much I loved comedy and how much I loved making people laugh, and yeah, and then I ended up on the first season of the Ellen DeGeneres show. And
And so tell us a little bit about that because there's a story
there
there.
is a story there. Yeah, I got that job. I was so excited about it. And I really loved the cast. We were all very good friends. But there was a lot of, upheaval on that set, a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. And so the role that they cast, that they really kind of wrote for me, which was such a fun part to play, began to sort of shift and change on set as the days were going by, and she was getting a little sexier and a little bawdier and a little more, I've been fired from several jobs and replaced by some very kind of fantastically bawdy redheads. That's for a period of time that was my story, and this was just another one of those moments waiting to happen. But there was just some really uncomfortable, strange transitions that was taking something was taking place back there, and I didn't have all the
Mm.
information I needed. But eventually I did get it, and I understood what was happening, and I understood that the writing was on the wall. And then I got fired. I was the first to get fired, and of course it was devastating. It was a very big, high profile job. I'd never been fired from anything, and it was very painful, and I never thought I'd live to see another day. I never leave the house again. Of course, Friends was waiting right around the corner, but
Okay, wait, before you
which
get on to
I love.
Friends, did Ellen because Ellen has a reputation, and both from that show and from her talk show, that she's difficult, although you don't seem to sound that way,
I
and that
loved
she
her.
fired a lot of people. Did she
Yeah.
not have anything to do with that?
She had nothing to do with my firing.
Nothing to do
My
with
firing was early. It was an early thing. So first it was me, then it was the other two actors that were cast with
it.
me.
Mm,
Eventually, it was the creators of the show, and the thing got tooled and retooled and retooled, and it had a very long life.
mhm.
She was she's undeniably wonderful and funny. But that was the earliest iteration of it. So whatever may have happened in terms of how she, you know, operated on other sets and other versions of the show. At that time, we were all really tight, and
Uh-huh.
we had a great time. Actually, it was kind of I don't want to say it was us against them, but I mean we were very bonded, all the whole cast. So and I had a great time with her. I haven't seen her in many years, but I really had a great time. So, but anyway, I got fired from that, and that was very humbling, and I didn't really know how I was going to proceed. But it was shortly after that that the Friends audition showed up on the fax machine, and by that time I had kind of dusted myself off, and I had realized I wasn't dead, and that I was going to leave the house again, and that I was going to maybe even act, and and I got that audition, and I felt very, very free to do whatever I wanted to do because nobody knew.
Tell us about what was on the written page. Like, how did Janice come? Where did
It,
that voice come from? Where did that
it's
laugh come from? How did you create that?
it said fast talking New Yorker. That's all it said. But it was like, hi, I got you these socks, and here, you can wear them however you want to wear them, mix and match, moose and squirrel, squirrel and moose. And I had just
Did
heard.
you go into the audition with that voice?
Yeah, I
You
did.
did.
I did. And I mean, I just didn't have anything to lose at that point. And I feel like, looking back, there are so many kind of versions of Janice and other women that live under that umbrella that I love to play and that live in me. I don't know that I let them out in the early years of my career because I didn't want anybody to know. But
Was she based on anybody specific? Was she was she what was she? Where did you get
She was a
Janice?
hybrid. To me, she was a hybrid of like some women that used to stand at the perfume counters at Bloomingdale's, one in particular that we used to go see all the time. And so, she was there. And then, when people ask me to describe the laugh and what that was, and I say it's like Arnold Horseshack and Woody Woodpecker. Um, or maybe Flipper. Maybe there's a little Flipper in there. I don't know. I don't know. But the laugh was born on the set. I don't think it was written in. I think it happened. Oh my God was written in. But the laugh happened because Matthew was so funny and so fast, and he was super quick, and I felt, I was the newbie, even though I think I'm in there on the third or fourth episode, so everybody was a newbie, but
Right.
they were the regulars, and I had to, I had you got to do your job really well and really quickly and not hold anything up when you're a guest. So yeah, I just needed to be prepared for when Matthew made me laugh, and he did. So he handed, we're doing the thing, and he's knocking back all the espressos, and then he hands me the bowl of coffee, and before I've even had a chance to drink it, he goes, "Do you want another one?" And that's when I think the laugh was born. I said, "No, I'm still doing this one," whatever it was, and that was it.
Did you crack him up? You had to crack him up.
We did crack up. We all did. Yeah, it was super, super fun. Yeah, so I don't, I'm so grateful that Janice
Did you know that Janice was going to stick around? Was Janice just a one-shot deal when you started?
was one, just in and out. And then, yeah, I was so excited when she came back, and then she came back again, and then she came back again, and then for 10 years,
It's
Janice.
fantastic. I just read today about Matthew's by memoir that's coming out. Did you read
Oh,
about it?
I've read about it. I've heard him talk about it on Instagram, and I haven't ordered mine yet.
Okay, so were you aware through all of that what he was going through? Did it impact the work? Did it impact the set? Did it impact you personally with him?
I think it did. It impacted everybody, him especially, but everybody, because obviously, when it's an ensemble piece, it depends
Mhm,
on all the players and everybody
mhm,
showing up. And, he did show up, and he was always funny and he was always ready. But obviously, how he looked changed a lot. He lost a
mhm.
ton of weight at one point. And,
Right.
I lost my brother to drug addiction. So I felt that in certain ways, I was uniquely suited to have some conversations with him around that time. And I did try to do that
Mhm,
and just support him. And, yeah, just try to be there as a friend. I mean, the tremendous pressure of being somebody who's that famous and in the public eye, and I haven't read the book, so I'm really curious to see how, what Matthew shares about it and what it has been like for him. But you know, just the pressure of being who they were at that
mhm,
time, and to
mhm,
be, bringing in those kinds of salaries, and and probably really never having a moment's downtime.
mhm.
So I'm
How did
and
that translate to you, Maggie, at that time? Because Friends could not have been seen on more screens, been a bigger hit. You were a big part of it. How did your life had to change too?
It did and it didn't. I mean, it definitely did. I mean, I was gainfully employed as an actor, so check
Mhm.
that box. I was raising babies, I mean, Juno, my first daughter, I was pregnant with her at the end of the first season. So
Which they wrote into the
they did. I came back 8 months pregnant. So fun. So yeah, I mean, I was raising my babies, and that was kind of more of the focus for me. And because they were such a sensation, and yes, I'm an enormous part of that show, and people consider me in all kinds of really phenomenal ways as part of the
you
fabric of
were,
that show.
yes.
But my life was never like their life. I
Mhm.
never had people waiting outside my door looking through my garbage. It
Yeah, yeah.
happened on I can count on one hand how many times something like that has happened. It doesn't mean people don't stop me in the grocery store or stop me at the airport. That kind of stuff happens. But, somebody like Matthew or somebody like Jennifer or any of those people, they can't walk a half a block.
Right.
So my life, in a way, I'm grateful for the size of my career ultimately, because it's allowed me to have the life that I have had, and
Mhm.
be really present for my kids. And yeah, I mean, you get a few things and you don't get a few things, but yeah, I don't know. Does that answer that question? I don't know.
Yes, no, that
You
answers
sent a
that
few
question.
things
So
down.
let's talk about Raymond, because that's another interesting story
Okay.
and our good friend Phil, whose show the sixth season debuted yesterday. Somebody feed Phil. And his
Incredible.
book dropped yesterday, and he's got people lining up for blocks to have him sign it. He's having all this wonderful glory and the stage of his life. So, and Phil was a big advocate of yours, a big fan of yours. So tell us about
Amazing.
Raymond.
Feels amazing. So in the midst of all of that, kind of, it was all happening a little bit at the same time. I
Mhm.
I read for Raymond. I loved the script so much. I read it. I laughed from first page to last. I'm like, I thought, who is this brilliant writer. And then I went in, I had my little baby Juno, with my friend Sherry was there. She's not with us anymore, but she was holding Juno in the lobby. I went in, I met Phil and Ray. I said, "Who wrote this? This is crazy brilliant." And then we had such a good time, and it was a love fest, and they were really excited about me, and I was excited about the show, to play Ray's wife, and it looked really promising and really good. Sometimes when it's too much love in the room, it's not a good sign because inevitably when it gets to the suits and the ties and the other people who make the decisions, they don't always align with the people on the artistic side of the fence. So
Right.
so I ran into that with Raymond, and I read for it a handful of times. That part's a little bit of a blur. I adore Phil and Ray, and so when push came to shove, at this point I was already about to be on another show, and where I was fired and replaced by a body redhead, um, and
Oh,
so
I
that
know
was
what show.
Suddenly Susan,
Suddenly Susan. Yeah. Okay.
and we were shot the pilot, and then they got rid of me. But
And you were playing a character named Vicki.
oh,
Yeah.
there you go. No, is that true, or was
Yeah.
I
Yeah. Yeah.
replaced
Yeah.
by?
Vicky.
I was replaced by Vicky.
You were replaced by Vicki. Okay. I knew there was
Oh
a
no, but
Vicki in
maybe
there.
my
I
character's
don't
name
know.
was Vicky. I don't
I don't
remember.
know. I don't
But
know.
anyway, there I was, and then Phil asked me to do him a favor, and I was honored that he asked me, because he said, "Will you please come to the network and read? You're not going to get it. They already, they've already want this and they already want that, but I really want them to see how I want
Wow.
it to be." And that is something that I really hold dear as an actor in my life, my story, my things that have happened to me in this career, that he asked me to come and do that. And some people thought I was crazy to do it
Now
because,
tell me what. Tell us why he wanted you to do that for you,
no,
for
for him.
him, for him.
He wanted them to see how he imagined the character, even if
I
they
see.
weren't going to give it to me. And
Mhm.
so I feel like that was the greatest praise I could have received, and I did it gleefully and joyfully. And I've never done that before. I've never gone to the network having no pressure. I'm not getting it. Not getting it. I'm just coming here to do the thing. So anyway, we did that.
Did it never dawn on you? Well, maybe if I have like the greatest audition of my life, I'm going to
Yeah.
get this part. Of course, you had to
Yeah,
think
I
that.
think I
Yeah.
kept that in my back pocket. Like,
Sure.
maybe there's a miracle here.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
the lovely thing is that Phil wrote me Linda Gruenfelder, and I got to be there and play with Ray and play with the Patty and everybody else, and I had a great time.
Wow. And so now I'm fast forwarding because we've been yakking for a while. Wait, you were on the X-Files. I didn't even I didn't talk to you about this last time. How did David do for you what you did for him with Henry? How did that happen?
Yeah, in a way. So David suggested me for that part on the X-Files, and I auditioned for it, I believe, or else they looked at my reel, I can't remember which, and I got the part. So I've done 3 jobs for the X-Files. I wish I had the piece of paper, because I realized that there were all these weird, kind of connected things about the 3 jobs that I've done for the X-Files. So the first one was that I played Detective Sharon Lazard, New York detective who came out to figure out what was happening with this, you know, whatever it was, supernatural people dying. And so that was so much fun. I went to Vancouver. I had the best time. When David and I ended up on set for that first moment where he's Mulder and I'm this detective, I burst out laughing. I could not keep it together. He's like, serious, all Mulder-like, and I burst out laughing. So unprofessional. But anyway, we pulled it together, and I had a great time. Then he hired me to be a musical director for the baseball episode that he directed, and I brought the song, this spiritual, and I worked with the actors, and I was in the sound stage, kind of
Wow.
recording of the baseball players singing on the bus. That was really a incredible experience. And then when there's a episode called, I think it's just called William, and it's when Gillian Anderson has to give her baby away, and David reached out to me and asked me if I would record a song, and so I recorded an a cappella version of Michael Row Your Boat Ashore, and that's what's played over this very, very emotional scene where she has to give her baby away. So I've been very fortunate to play with the X-Files, kind of from all sorts of different directions. But I did a podcast for the X-Filey obsessive X-File people. And I was writing things down and looking at dates, and I realized I wish I had it in front of me, but it was something like this happened on the 19th, the 4th, the 19th of the 4 of 19. This happened on 19/4. This happened on, anyway, whatever it was, there were all these strange
Wow.
date connections. I was so
Have
happy.
you and David ever made music together? Because he's quite
I
the
have sung backup for him on stage when he first started making music. That was super fun. I went down to Venice and to see him play, and he called me up on the stage, and Minnie Driver and I sang background vocals for him. That was super fun. And then over the years, he's sent me things as he's written them, and sometimes I'll sing harmonies and send them back to him. And yeah, we haven't, but since then we haven't done any performing together.
how
But
fun is that?
we do talk about music a lot.
So, okay, so we've talked about what you're doing now as far as this huge project for music, this choral project. Are you auditioning, or have you done an acting thing during COVID?
No, I have, nor have I mastered the art of the self-tape, which is, the new normal. I have auditioned for a handful of things from my home, and I have, I had like a Zoom call back on a show, and I didn't get it. Yeah, so I'm not really sure where all of that is. I released that to the universe, and I actually, that's not true. I have a little project in the pipeline, but I don't think I can talk about it. I'm excited about it, and it's with a French director, and I hope that we're going to be doing it in June, in this coming June. That's my hope, and it's going to be very funny, and I'm excited about it.
Well, that's my
That's
hope
all
for
I can
you
say.
too. That's good enough. I love that. Maggie, I just adore you. And it's been so lovely just to see your face and to spend this time with you. And okay, so tell us again how everybody can find all the music.
Okay, so get on my mailing list at goldenbridgechoir.com. That is the first thing you can do, and then there's some stuff that you can buy there. There's a store, and you can also, there are two archives there. One is the archive of all the live concerts from the Golden Bridge Choir, and that also includes the virtual concerts that we did, and that's, I think both archives are like $25 a piece. It's lifetime, membership, and then the Together in Song archive, which is really fun, is also there. And there are four more episodes of that I have to edit and get up there, which I've been dragging on. And then yeah, there's some music up there, and there's lots of videos that you can just watch on the Watch Videos page, and on the schedule page, there's always upcoming events, so you can look at that to find out about the well-held concert, which is coming up this Sunday. And then yeah, if you're on my mailing list, I send out lots of messages about stuff that's coming.
Fantastic. And that song that you sang for us, can we find that on your site?
Maybe I'll Sing is available as a single because it was part of an incredible event called 10 Days to Revolutionary Love that was put together by Valerie Kaur, who's a civil rights lawyer and a brilliant, amazing woman. So I put it up there because it was part of 10 Days of Revolutionary Love. And so it's there as a single, and it will also be part of this compilation that I'm hoping to get up in the next couple of weeks.
Thank you so much for all that you're doing to bring people together and to fill us with song. It's so wonderful. I just
So
love
much.
everything that you do, and I adore you.
I adore you.
Thank you so much, Maggie.
Thanks,
And
and
I
thanks to all the people out there that I know and that I don't know.
see you soon.